It was a strange day of unity in the House of Representatives, the likes of which we have not seen during the Trump era in Washington. The House of Representatives finally united on something in a stunning bipartisan vote of 424-1. The House of Representatives voted to condemn the language Republican Congressman Steve King used in a New York Times interview about white supremacy. And the vote against that resolution, the one vote against it, was not from Steve King. The one vote against that resolution was from Congressman Bobby Rush, who said he thought the resolution went too easy on Steve King, and he proposed that the House vote to formally censure Steve King. Steve King obviously knows he is now fighting for his survival in the House of Representatives, and so Steve King actually voted against Steve King today.
I want to ask my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, let's vote for this resolution. I'm putting up a yes on the board here because what you say here is right, and it's true, and it's just.
Before that massive show of unity in the House of Representatives, President Trump tried to divide and conquer the Democrats in the House of Representatives, and once again he discovered just how completely unified the Democrats are in their resistance to Donald Trump and the Trump wall. Donald Trump bypassed the Democratic congressional leadership and invited at least 6 Democratic House members from swing districts to the White House, along with about 9 Republican members of the House, for what the president hoped would be a bipartisan-looking meeting that he could televise to show that he was reaching out to the other side and trying to solve the shutdown. But all 6 of the Democrats, including Abigail Spanberger, who as a freshman has never been in a governing meeting in the White House, turned down the invitation from the president and stood solidly behind Nancy Pelosi's simple negotiating position on the Trump wall, which of course is just saying no to Donald Trump. Everyone in the Senate now knows that what started as the Trump shutdown is now the Mitch McConnell shutdown, because Majority Leader Mitch McConnell could bring any of the House spending bills that have been passed to a vote in the Senate, and they would pass the Senate. Montana Senator Jon Tester is outraged by the Senate's refusal to act in the shutdown.
I take an oath of office to protect this country first, and we're turning our back on this country. We can continue to have the debate about the best way to secure the border, but it should not be done holding the American people hostage. We've got a lot of work to do, and that work starts with opening the government of the United States. If we don't do it, or if we say we're only going to do it with permission from the president, then we all ought to hold our head in shame. I yield the floor.
When we come back, Senator Jon Tester joins us.
Republicans are feeling the heat. Trump some, but he seems impervious to people's pain, which is just disgusting. But our Republican colleagues in the Senate are, and more of them are beginning to scramble. And if enough of them do and put pressure on McConnell to bring the 6 bills that the House passed to the floor, we can get the government open.
Joining us now, Democratic Senator Jon Tester of Montana. He is on the Appropriations Committee. Senator Tester, is Chuck Schumer right? Is that what you're hearing from your Republican colleagues? You could pass these House spending bills if Mitch McConnell would simply put them to a vote?
Well, I think if the Senate would do its job and act like the legislative branch, not the executive branch, and bring these bills up, 4 of which passed unanimously back in September, Lawrence, I think there'd be plenty of votes to pass them, and the government would be open because the House has already passed them. And I would say this, if they're put on the president's desk, I think the president would sign them. I think he's sick of the shutdown, too, and I think it would give him a way out. And on the odd chance that he would veto them, bring them back and do what the legislative branch does and vote to override that veto. And I think there's votes to do that. So, look, all I'm asking is that the Senate act like the greatest deliberative body in the world and take up the issue that's most important to this country right now, and that's reopening the government. And if we're able to get those bills on the floor, if Leader McConnell will put them on the floor, I think they pass, and I think they pass handily.
What has the shutdown meant to your constituents in Montana?
It's been bad. I mean, we've got the second most government workers in Montana per capita in the country. And so when it comes to getting on an airplane, we got TSA agents, which on Monday morning I jumped on the plane and they had smiles on their face, but they were not happy. This puts our country at security. We have a 550-mile border with Canada. It puts our security at risk in this country because, quite frankly, all these people are working without pay. They're working and they're not getting a paycheck. And I'm telling you that, like most Americans, that could mean losing a house. It could mean losing a car, not sending your kid to college. It means a lot of things. And that's just on the folks who aren't getting paid. We've got Farm Service Agency offices that are closed, they're shuttered, they're not open. We just passed a farm bill. I think it's a pretty good farm bill. Farmers can't get access to the FSA offices. Why? Because they're closed due to the shutdown. We've got businesses that have small business loans out there that can't close on those small business loans because the SBA is shut down. The list goes on, Lawrence, and the impacts are real to real families. And I can't talk enough about how irresponsible this is for Congress not to do its job, pass the bills, put them on the president's desk. If the president vetoes them, do our job, try to get a veto override. But the ultimate thing here is this is not doing our economy any good. It's not doing people any good. We've got to recruit people to work in Customs and Border Protection with TSA. And quite frankly, this is going to push people away. Who would work for a government who in the last year has been shut down 3 times? This is crazy.
And so we had the president's chairman of economic advisors say it's like a vacation for federal workers. He seems to be ignoring that we have federal workers like you're talking about, TSA agents, who are working. The difference for them is they're simply not being paid, as no federal workers subjected to this are being paid.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a vacation. This creates a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in families in Montana and across this country, and that doesn't do anybody any good. And from a taxpayer standpoint, it is a gross waste of money because you got folks who are basically locked out of their jobs that can't do their jobs. They should be made whole in the end, so they're going to get paid for not working. In the meantime, how do these folks pay their bills? They don't have access to that paycheck that is so critically important because so many families in this country live from paycheck to paycheck, and government workers are no exception in that.
Senator Chester, you just got reelected to a 6-year term in Montana. You had to beat Donald Trump, who went to Montana to beat you. It wasn't just you were running against 2 people, the name on the ballot and Donald Trump. With that win and with a 6-year term, are you tempted to get into another electoral fight with Donald Trump and try to go one-on-one with him in 2020? Because it seems every time one of your Democratic colleagues in the Senate goes on television, they announce that they're exploring the possibility of taking on the president.
Well, let me put it this way. I think that we have got a lot of work to do in this country, starting with opening the government, and I hope Mitch McConnell or Donald Trump sees the light and opens the government. We can talk about border security because I think it's important to talk about, but let's open the government first. Second thing is we've got a lot of needs in this country. A lot of folks, there's no affordable housing to live in, so we need to address that. We need to address infrastructure. We need to address health care costs. The list goes on, and we need to make sure we do right by our veterans and make sure that they can get the health care while we build the VA to make sure they can get access to the VA. So the list goes on, Lawrence. Look, I'm flattered that people would think that I would make a good opponent for President Trump. You're right. We took him on and we beat him in Montana. But the end result here is that we need to move this country forward. And there's so many things that Congress needs to do and the Senate needs to lead on. And if we don't do it, those things won't get done. And that's not the way you make America great again.
What did you learn running against Donald Trump, as you had to in Montana, that the candidates who do decide to run are going to need to know?
Well, I think you've got to have a great ground game. In other words, you've got to hit all the communities that are out there and listen to people and listen to them, because the fact is that everybody's got good ideas, and if you can use some of those good ideas to help move the country forward, move the economy forward, that's a good thing. The other thing is, I say that you've got to be yourself. You can't be something that you're not. If you are, people see through that, and they'll vote you out of office, or you'll never get into that office you're trying to aspire to. So it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of listening. You know, my folks always say you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, act accordingly. That's very true. I believe very true on the campaign trail. You need to tell people what you stand for, but you also need to listen to them to find out what they're concerned about so that you can help make change in the country and keep this country the greatest country in the world.
Senator Tester, I'm going to leave you with this thought to sleep on. The last time we saw this many Democratic senators run for president was 1972, and the guy who emerged from the field with the nomination was George McGovern from South Dakota. So your region has done very well when it comes to highly contested nominations in the Democratic Party.
I would look at it from this perspective. We had one of the greatest majority leaders that we've ever had, and his name was Mike Mansfield, and he was a great majority leader because he got people together. He didn't divide them. And if he was alive now, he'd say this government shutdown is a huge mistake. Legislative branch, do your job, open the government.
The great Senator Mike Mansfield. Senator John Tester, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.